remember first walking into this building with Marcus Feets, and I think it was almost 4 years ago, and we had been looking for an alternative site for our church. St Paul's is a family, community-minded church, but we were being squeezed out to a significant degree by the growing density and high-rise development around us in Station Street. We felt that this was really impacting particularly on car parking opportunities for people driving to church, and also for access to church, which was increasingly getting congested. We really didn't have many alternatives other than to redevelop on that site and build underground car parking and so forth, until we found this site.
I saw this building maybe 2 years ago when I was first considering coming here from Adelaide to be the pastor, and to see it now almost brings tears to my eyes with how amazing it is.
We're, I think, very impressed by the St James Uniting Church, who, as soon as we met them, developed quite a strong friendship with them, and then we became aware that they were praying that we would buy this church. It did take us a couple of years before we were able to purchase and then settle, which was towards the end of 2018, and then the design work started. So this is entering through the main church doors into the narthex. This area has been opened right out. It's become a true narthex to the nave of the church. This was previously an enclosed porch, actually, which had a wall here and double doors and so forth. So this has been completely redesigned for an extension of the church as you get your first glimpse of the nave. We've purchased this cross from an early 20th century Belgian sculptor to particularly fit this alcove, which has been refurbished from what was previously here. Those doors will be replaced eventually by glass doors into a fully enclosed foyer. That's part of the second stage of the development here, which will include a significant community centre and ministry centre for St Paul's.
I think one thing I really remember clearly when I walked here the first time is that I felt this space have always been loved by the people that used it. It was never neglected. No. And the same was with the church, the St Paul's congregation, the building they were leaving behind. It was a humble but loved space. And so how do you transition? You want to respect the history and bring it across, but it's for another congregation that have different needs, or how does that affect the use of the space? How do people get together in a different way?
Collectively, we were really enthralled by the soaring, beautiful timber ceilings and the scale and the asymmetry of this building. It was actually built in 1964 by an architectural firm, Chancellor and Patrick, and who were doing a lot of domestic work sort of well prior to that, and had moved into taking on some much larger commissions, and this was one of their first ecclesiastical church buildings. That history and the knowledge of that the building actually has a heritage overlay on it, and rightly so. The original brief given to the original architects, Chancellor and Patrick, was there were 3 design elements to be considering. One is that the building has an identity and it's identifiable as a church, as a place of congregation. The second one, which was interesting, which was connecting to the adjoining buildings, which were older as well, and being sympathetic to those. The third one is warmth and reverence.
I remember Sandy had come to one of our services at Station Street, and she asked, what do you focus on during the service? And it was a really insightful question, because in some ways it's kind of quite subconscious, and the answer that I gave her was the cross.
The emphasis here is on where the word and sacraments are located for us. Part of the emphasis here was on developing this theme of the centrality of the cross. This reredos was specially commissioned from a company called Bronzeworks, who worked closely with a partner company, Osiris, who built the 3 major pieces of furniture here. And our brief to the artisans who commissioned this was to give a sense of the cosmos, if you like, of clouds, and particularly the cross, which was coming out of those clouds. And there's some words reflecting this from John 1 on a panel. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And then the other important elements here which have been designed, first of all the baptismal font, the circular of stone. These are made out of Australian timbers again, the Vic Ash plinth, with the Queensland walnut inserts. And then the same with the altar, where we celebrate the sacrament. Again, Vic Ash, walnut and bronze work, with some carving, some sacramental words carved into the lower part of the altar. And then we've got the lectern. And again, this is a bespoke item which has been beautifully designed by Martina and constructed by Osiris. That's been fully fitted with lighting, amplification, and also a fold-back speaker as repository of the word, and also a fold-down step for kids and shorter people as well, so that's easily accessible for everybody. We should mention the ramp here, which has been designed specifically for disabled access behind the reredos, so that we've got accessibility for all onto the sanctuary platform. Items which we've been able to bring from St Paul's are the processional cross, the brass candles, and also the paschal candle, which is, as usual, sited next to the baptismal font.
There's something about the space that was very different to where we've been. It's very wide with 3 rows of pews. The roof line and the wooden pillars, to me it feels like a forest. There was that feeling of this is a really warm and welcoming space.
And that was one of, I think, the 4 design principles for law architects. And you might want to remind me what those were.
Yeah, so the first one was welcoming. We want a space that is not intimidating but welcoming for our congregation and our visitors. The second one is, in thinking about the design, I guess we wanted something that was timeless. And that probably leads to our third design principle, which is that it's future-proofed, and that's as much a practical kind of design principle as any. And then of course sacred, it has to be a sacred space.
We've retained so much, but at the same time we have changed how you perceive the space by the demolition of the door at the entrance, the separation between the narthex and the nave, for instance, or enhancing the existing materials. What this congregation wanted was really a space to sing together. So how do we use the surfaces and the space to enhance the singing together, the coming together?
The acoustic blockwork was specifically designed by Martina for diffusing of the sound. This is under advice from our acoustic engineer. And this beautiful piece over here in the musicians area also serves a couple of functions. There's some little cabinets for personal microphones and so forth for our musicians. This area here will be mostly for amplified musicians, and the area here in front of the organ console is for our choir and other vocal groups. The organ console is here, but the organ pipes, which have come from our church in Station Street, the loggie organ, have been installed in the gallery and completely rebuilt into new casework. These two tables here, which are new design as well, the sacramental table, where the sacramental elements can be placed before they're then brought to the altar or to the font. The memorial table, which houses our memorial book in honour of those people who have died amongst our community, and partly also as a reference to the memorial garden which will be designed in the next stage. This is a children's area and cabinetry for church bags and so forth. And we also have a children's retreat and prayer retreat the other side of the worship space. As we come up the steps here, which will not be available for public access, but it does give us access to the bell, which we've refurbished. One of the 3 air conditioners, which is installed here, and all the ductwork here. This is the size of a small car. We were quite serious with the heating and the cooling, which was necessary for this space. It gets very cold. And also the back of the organ here. This is the organ which was moved from Station Street, which was previously in a tower on up one level on a concrete slab. This is the blower and the bellows and all the circuitry and so forth, which most people wouldn't normally see. This is at the back of a new swell box, which has been completely built for this space by Daniel Bittner's company.
We wanted an architect that had experience with church buildings, that understood the importance of the liturgical practices and elements of worship, and Law have been great to work with in that regard.
And we're impressed by their respect for the heritage listing and for the original design of David Chancellor from Chancellor and Patrick, and their ability to provide us with some designs which enhance that, certainly on the interior, which wasn't covered by the heritage listing. But it was really quite remarkable that local heritage listing was placed on this building within 30 years of it having been built.
A project can be successful when there is a collective endeavour to really listen to each other, other than knowing that you were steering the ship all the way through in every little minor detail. There's no one hand critically on this.
It's always about God among the people, and the architecture really highlights that. We look forward to inviting everyone here. It's going to be a great opportunity for young and old and in between to really, really enjoy this stunning building.